Like I haven't said the word dirge for a while.
A dirge, yeah.
You'll like it.
It's Dirge.
I do. I
Cultural
like it.
dirge.
Maybe I'll change my name, Deirdre. I'm not Deirdre, I'm Deirdre.
There you go.
Hello and welcome to Crackcast number 306. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is the amazingly beautiful Tanserine. Hello, Tanserine. Look at your hair today. That's really cool.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you.
And the incredible Pitface who's got her hair in a bun, a cream bun. I don't know if she does that. Maybe she
Don't squeeze it.
Looks
Get
fantastic.
your hands all dirty.
And the amazingly distinguished gentleman that is Mr. Baines. Hello.
Oh, thank you. Hello.
Distinguished gentleman. So now we were talking about culture and world culture and cultural background, actually, in comicking. This was an idea that Hippie Van came up with, and it's been an idea in my head for a while too. The fact that we all sort of share a culture, all us English speakers and even non-English speakers, we have this idea of a shared culture, but it isn't truly shared. We don't really have the same background, so we look at things slightly differently, even though we think we look at everything the same and we consume the same media in the same way, but it doesn't really mean the same things to us because we have different backgrounds. So that's what we're going to chat about. But first, before we do that, we have to get into the usual stuff. So the featured comic this week was something that Mr. Drunkduck came up with, and it was called something that I haven't looked up yet.
Oh, that's an intriguing title.
Let's just find out what that was. It was called Salamander.
Yes.
Which is an interesting piece of work. So I'll just let that get talked about now.
Hello, this is Drunkduck, innit? Welcome to the
Witness the birth of Salamander, a superheroine granted powers by a fire salamander. Erin is a fairly average 22-year-old working in a pet store until the store is hit by an arson attack. When her life is in danger, things take a dramatic change. Salamander is shaping up to be an LGBT-themed superhero tale with mysterious unfolding around the heroine. Sumptuous manga-inspired art carries the action and delivers the drama excellently. Check out Salamander by Saint Brie, rated T. Now, the art is lovely. It's all full colour. It's all digital art, but it's quite cel-shaded in appearance, even though it's quite... it's a little stylized, but it's quite realistic in a lot of ways, and it looks really cool. A bit cartoony, but yeah, lovely looking. Almost vector art, I would say. I would not be surprised if this was all vector art. Anyway, thank you, Drunkduck, for featuring this lovely comic. It's about over 40 pages, so there's a lot to read, and I hope you enjoy it. Salamander by Saint Brie. And that was the feature by the Drunkduck did the feature, and the actual comic was by someone that he would have told us about, because I haven't read that. So thank you very much, Drunkduck, for giving us that feature. Okay, so we have the music now by Mr. Gumwallace, as always, and Mr. Gumwallace has given us the feature for a comic called Alia, Speaker for the Dead, and this is a sad, sepulchral, grieving dirge-like requiem with an uncomfortable sting of an evil jazz trumpet. So I hope you enjoy that. So take it away, Mr. Gumwallace. Speaking for the Dead, the theme by Gun Wallace. So I hope you like that. Oh, the comic itself is by John H. 985. It's rated M, and it's a sort of about a person who gets killed, and then this person has to sort of it's like a priest or something, I think, and has to find out who did it, or do the respects for the dead or something. I can't remember. It's a long time since I read it, but it's a well done comic. Anyway, let's get into this cultural stuff. So this is a post that Hippie Van wrote, a very clever Canadian person who has a Canadian background, Canadian cultural background, which is a rather specific background. And we have someone on the Quackcast today who has a Canadian background, who can empathise with everything Hippie wrote.
Brimming with Canadians.
Yes.
Yeah, infested with them, indeed.
Majoring in Canadians.
From Canada.
I know what she's talking about. Cultural mosaic versus the melting pot. We're all sort of raised to sort of have that understanding of Canadian culture.
The mosaic. Ooh.
Yeah, it's a cultural mosaic. That's what they always used to tell us.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Well, that's what Hippie Van's post says.
Okay. That's interesting. So you guys have a rather interesting cultural background, because obviously it's North America, of course, and you have America right below you, USA right below you, I should say. So you've got that massive cultural influence, and you have a very British heritage because you're still part of the Commonwealth and all that. So you're way more British than the people below you. So you had all the TV shows from Britain and.
Yeah, that's very odd to have sort of so much in common with you you being from New Zealand or wherever you're from. And then having sharing these commonalities that we don't share with the US, which is so much closer to us. So it is kind of an odd thing. And sharing things in common with, with like Brits and other Europeans and
French people.
Australians.
So we could say that culturally you three are different versions of the same thing. Like you have branched out in the cultural evolution tree. You have branched out in different points.
Yes.
Yes.
From the
Something
shoot
like
that is British culture.
The tree, but even Utahns have some Canadian part.
But the only part is like a complete chance, because it's just the place where I was born, and I'm very thankful and affectionate towards Canada for letting me be born there, I guess.
Wow.
But I was raised since I was 4 in Greece, and my parents were both Greek, so I don't think sociologically it counts very much. Unfortunately.
Still, it's pretty cool though that you were born in Canada. That's amazing.
Actually, I was born in Quebec, which is like the window of Canada. Yes. So.
Yeah, it's kind of its own thing. Yeah.
Born in the same country as Baines and Hippie Van. Amazing.
Yeah. You poor dear. Sorry.
That's so cool.
Who knows? At some point, maybe I will visit, and now I will actually have memory that is more than postcard memory. So,
like your memory is like being shoved out of a birth canal, and that's not the most accurate representation of Quebec. So
maybe it is.
Or yeah.
The one actual memory that is mine that I have from Canada is like this very wide street, and I am in a bus. My mom is holding me, and they have these buildings that are like brick buildings with white dresses, let's say, around the windows, and they are very, very specific. And this is the one memory I have from Canada. It's like from one.
How old were you when you left?
4.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Hey, that's a good memory.
So that would be your earliest memory, I guess, huh? In life.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have actually three, but this is the most the one that you would be, I guess, able to place easily where it is. It's like
Right.
it's an avenue that would be recognizable. The other two is like me walking through leaves and crunching on them, and apparently I really like that, so it stayed. And the other one is running through this wooden corridor in our house, which was an old Canadian house that my parents were renting at the time. So, yeah, those three. That's it.
That's neat.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So, yeah, the Canadian connection is incredible. So, how, Baines, speaking as a hippie-vanian, as you are,
Yeah.
how does this influence or alter your perception of things that, mainly produced by Americans or Australians or Greeks or whatever? How do you think that informs your point of view?
Oh man, that's a pretty deep question. How about I read Hippie Van's post?
Yeah, well, go ahead if you like. Sure.
My city, she says, had a massive snowfall on Boxing Day this year, the day after Christmas for you non-Canadians. Nothing too unusual for a Canadian winter, but even so, the city always seems to grind to a halt when it happens. After helping a neighbor get his car unstuck and then helping two other neighbors with the same task, my dad remarked, after having a neighbor help him get his car unstuck and then helping two other neighbors with the same task, my dad remarked that he thought this was one of the reasons that Canadians are a little bit different than Americans. This kind of environment necessitates cooperation over individualism.
Okay.
It got me thinking about how our environment and cultural background affect the art that we create, even when we have access to influences from all over the world, thanks to the internet. Canadian culture is a little bit hard to pin down, as we often just define ourselves in contrast to our neighbors south of the border. I think she means Mexico. But there are a couple of concepts that I was raised on that have definitely worked their way into what I create. The first is the ideal of a mosaic rather than a melting pot. The idea here, for those of you who weren't entrenched in this stuff growing up, is that people coming to Canada don't simply assimilate to a uniform Canadian national identity, but rather contribute to our collective culture by bringing their own cultural background with them. If you check out the first page of my comic, the influence there is pretty explicit and was intended as a sort of tongue-in-cheek reference. And she has a link to the first page of her comic, which is D. What's her comic called again? Mm-hmm. D in space, I want to say. No, I know that's not it.
Izzy walks around and does stuff?
Not Izzy, the new one. D's battles in space. I'll come up with it soon. I'll get it.
The reluctant space tourist.
Yes, the reluctant space tourist. That's it. I wanted to create a place where diverse cultures and types of people were celebrated as being an asset and something that makes their planet unique. The second is that as a child, I was always told that Canada was a peacekeeping nation rather than a warring nation. As an adult, I know that's more myth than reality, but it's still something that I absorbed into my worldview. I was also raised by Buddhist parents, and in a community with a large Mennonite population. She must be like central Canada-ish, prairies or something, I guess. Basically, nonviolence was an important aspect of my background growing up. It may be partly as a result of that I've never had any inclination towards featuring any kind of combat in my comics or other art, other than maybe the odd slapsticky sucker punch. I didn't even notice until someone pointed out that Dee's ship has no weapons. How does your cultural background, national, religious, or otherwise, affect your work? That's the question. So that's what set up our whole topic today.
Yeah. So it does affect your work in all sorts of ways. I know. I sort of wrote underneath Hippie's post that when I designed the whole Pinky TA thing, I realized that a lot of Australianisms would be really anachronistic and weird to people from people. It would just be rather silly or cutesy, it'd appear, I would think. So I wanted to limit that, but I didn't want to fake an American tone because that's just dumb as well, faking an American tone. So instead I sort of thought I could harness the Australianisms to change, to sort of set up Pinky's personality herself. So she has a sort of very larrikinish Australian kind of personality in that, she's very obvious in the way she sort of does things, and, she swears and sort of carries on that and in a very ordinary kind of Australian way and says what's on her mind. But that sort of enhances her character. That doesn't point her out as being like Australian. That sort of just gives her a rougher kind of, salty kind of character. And that's how I thought I'd use it, rather than, have all the Britishisms which are part of the Australian culture, but seem a little bit twee and a little bit old fashioned when they're in a comic or something. And I didn't want to do that. They can be really, really awful. So yeah, I wanted to, but I did want to do it too. Just pretend I was American with and like copy cultural tropes and stuff like that. And because I'm Australian, I look at American culture from the outside, and I can see a lot of things are reused. Say if there's an explosion, someone goes "fire in the hole" or "not on my watch," and all this kind of carrying on. Like it's in a military context, and I did not want to have any of that crap.
It's more Hollywood than actually American.
Yes,
well, it's American movies about military stuff, and that's what you'd have in a military context. And if you look at any comics, they ape that because they think that is the way people in a military kind of environment should act, and I didn't want to have any of that kind of thing. So, where possible, I go if I'm going to have like kind of speech or how the characters are talking, I'll look at like the way the British people would their soldiers in the British Army would talk, because that gives it a bit more difference and makes it sound a bit more foreign, so to speak, than it would be if it was like the typical American military stuff. You see it in all the Hollywood American military films about war, and they all say, "Oh, it's on your six," and all this kind of stuff. They have this specific speech. So yeah, I wanted to be influenced by British culture rather
military
than
lingo.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what informs Pinky TA. How about you guys? I mean, obviously, Tance, you have the biggest thing there with without Moonlight, because you come from a solidly Greek background. You have to translate this. It's all in English, so you have to make your stuff understandable to American and Australian, British people, whatever, English speakers, without being obscure or whatever.
Yeah, I guess, okay, because mine is a historical graphic novel, so to say, there are two things that I have to keep in mind, like stay away from stereotyping, if I can, like, and not think, I mean, in terms of, okay, these guys are Greek and these guys are German and these guys are British. Okay, I had only one so far and he's dead. Anyway, that guy was German, that guy was British or whatever. Because then they don't act as people with personalities. They just act as cardboard figures.
Yeah.
If I just think of them in those terms. But yeah, definitely. I mean, there are some elements that I think imbue not only the characters themselves, but the approach, probably, of the story. Like Greeks have, and I wrote that in the comments underneath that post, Greeks have an innate suspicion of authority. Like if you present yourself as someone that should be obeyed just because he or she carries some sort of authority, you will get at least a grain of suspicion, if not an outright, like, no, you have to prove and convince me first. so that I will follow you, or that I will accept your point of view or whatever. But so that is something that is like reflex reactions in Greeks. Like if you say, you are going to do it because I said so, it's like the one guarantee that's not going to happen. Absolutely not. Even teachers, for example, in classrooms, don't say it unless they are very pissed and they have, gone through all the other steps. And of course, then they have absolutely lost control. But they will first, explain, no, you're going to do this because this is what has to happen for this reason. If you don't do this formula, you will not get a big response unless you're talking to like 4-year-olds. Those will obey. And the other thing that you do have is like we do have as a nation a propensity to get angry easily, like to have flares of anger, but then it fades away very quickly, and it's not something that remains, if you know what I mean. It's not like a building grudge that keeps. But you might have, people just exploding on you, and then they relax and it's fine.
Okay.
And that is also part of the culture. So, and I have seen that in all levels in society, all categories of people, all educational levels. I mean, it's everywhere, and you can see it. So that I do depict as much as I dare, without stereotyping. And I guess that the way that I depict the other cultures also is from the Greek point of view, like how we see, how we differentiate the Germans from the Nazis. Okay, which is a thing. Actually, over here they are not considered the same thing, things like that. So there are little nuances that I keep in mind, but other things that would be stereotypical, I completely go away from to avoid that.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah. Okay. It is complicated, isn't it? To think about. To separate this stuff in your head, you think, how have I? Because it's more instinctual, isn't it? When you're sort of doing that, you're not really mathematically.
No, it's like in retrospect, like looking back, I have been doing all these things. It's not like I sit down and tell myself, okay, now I'm going to separate this from that, and it's just like, okay, this seems a little extreme. Let's tone it down, or this should be enhanced a little bit. Like you fine tune, like when you
can figure it out after.
Yes, exactly. You correct the taste as you cook, in a sense.
Yeah, just add a bit more salt.
Very nice.
But say you two working together on Brave Resistance, you have a cultural clash there of an American character learning about his Greek environment. So you have a very specific sort of thing there. Hunter has to sort of understand the environment he finds himself in, and what people's reactions mean. The language, obviously, he learns that, and he has to sort of find out about what the relationships between all these people are and the way they're reacting to each other. Is this just typical of Greeks in general, or is this their personalities? Is Nikos a really, really good example of just a normal Greek person, or is he a dickhead?
I think he's like of the jacked up Greek person that is also a bit of a dick, yeah.
So you guys show that really well. It's a very good example of a good culture clash comic. So, Putrid Meat. What do you think your cultural influences are there for Putrid Meat?
Well, so I thought about this a little bit, and I mean, I could think of a couple things. So when I think of the setting of Putrid Meat, I kind of think of the comment that Vicky had left about her settings about cities, which we haven't read yet. but how, as somebody who doesn't live in a city, how that affects how you depict a city. So, for instance, I myself, I've grown up in the Chicagoland area, but not in Chicago. I grew up in a place called McHenry, which is, you can see it in the movie Dogma, and it's like the very edges of what's considered the Chicagoland area. And it was where the farmland kind of met the more growing areas. And since then, that area has grown up a lot as well. So now, like when I was born in McHenry, it started out as lots of farmland, not very many stores and stuff like that. I mean, lots of like neighborhoods and houses and stuff. But since then, it's really become more like there's a lot more shopping centers, which has brought in more buildings and stuff like that. Anyway, what I was getting to was when I was a kid, living like kind of on the fringe of the Chicagoland area, but in a place that's still very rural, I loved going to the city because it was so different than where I lived. And so everything seemed probably more heightened than it was. Like I always like to fantasize the city as like this big neon place with parties and car chases every night and stuff like that. And now, unfortunately, in Chicago, that's not too far from the truth. But
I was thinking that.
But yeah, so it kind of since childhood, it started this kind of love affair with, what is the out of control city and stuff like that. And so that eventually became incorporated into what Septica became, Putrid Meat. And heavy metal helped out with that a lot too, because that's a lot of the imagery in heavy metal, revolves around the, parties and just shit getting out of control and stuff like that. So yeah, that's, simple answer. That's just kind of, that's the only real major cultural influence I can think of that really affected Putrid Meat, because everything else is just kind of branches out off of that, that environment.
Okay. All right. That's pretty cool. Yeah, and you, of course, as a cultural influence, you've got the music as well, which is a big influence. That's specific to your, what you grew up with and what was big in that area. Thrash metal, all this kind of stuff.
Well, it wasn't big in the area. Thrash metal wasn't
in America
a big thing where I grew up. It's just a thing that I found, yeah.
Yeah.
In America. Yes. But America's vast, so, what one person grows up with in one end of the country, another person might grow up with something completely different.
Yeah. But say you didn't grow up with Bavarian Oompa music, for example.
No. Close. There was one side of my family, there were yodelers and kind of oopers and stuff like that from the older generations back and stuff. So that wasn't completely removed from that aspect, but the metal was a little bit more prevalent, yeah.
I do see a yodeling kind of influence in Putrid Meat.
Yeah,
but it's like, God, that was fucking terrible. That was more terrible than I wanted it to be, actually. I thought it would be a little... Oh, my God. Let's move on.
Give us a yodel.
When I talk to you also, I sort of feel like, yeah.
Yodeling?
That was good.
That was nice.
Oh, go on, Baines. Tell us.
I could be wrong about this, but I talked to Pitface a little bit, and I see maybe an interest in the Odyssey.
Yeah, Tanya just wrote that as well.
Oh, you saw it.
I know. It was a good try. It's a big effect in my life now. But comic-wise, maybe on Blitzov a little bit, and maybe on Bones having like a journey, but it's very, very loosely. Those are things that affect me in big ways in other ways, and I say that they could definitely have an effect because when something does have such a big effect on your interests and your personality and the way your life is going, then it's really, really hard to say that it won't affect every other aspect. But I can't think of really any big blatant ways that it affects it. But I'm sure it's there.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with it either is the thing, too. That's been a new thing. And I started putrid meat, at least, way before I got interested in those things.
Uh-huh. Before you became cultured.
Yes, before I became cultured.
Yeah, but when those things make the curriculum, they will still draw connection between Joe the pizza guy and some kind of master in the Odyssey that
Yeah, definitely.
he symbolized and that sort of thing.
The first psychopathic killer there is
Not a
obviously
lot.
the
I'm
Cyclops.
not hearing a lot of things.
True. It's obviously the Cyclops, the first murderer guy. The parallels are obvious, Pit, I'm afraid.
Yes, of course.
Oh, how could I? Yes, before I ever read the Odyssey, I had made all these connections.
Of course, because you had the precognition of what you were gonna read, and you were basically channeling the thing.
It's Jungian, collective unconscious. There you are. It was out there.
Sure.
You could,
Sure, guys.
couldn't help
Sure.
but be affected.
Sure.
So Baines, with your collective unconscious, what are the things that really are culturally Canadian about typical strange? I mean, we know Canada is a typically strange country, for a start.
It's definitely there in the characters' personalities. I mean, I would say the stuff I sort of read and watched growing up was a lot of American, movies, TV, comics, and books. And so it was a huge American influence, actually. And it's kind of...
So would you say any of your characters have anything that are typically Canadian about them that other people who are Canadian would see, but no one else would really get?
I don't know about that, but I think that definitely the characters are, there's a certain, I don't know what the term would be, but they sort of...
politeness or a cooperativeness?
Yeah, I was going to say politeness, a sort of... I was going to say repressed, but that's maybe too strong. That could be right on the money, though. Certain kind of repressed things as far as emotions go. Definitely a politeness, definitely a sense of humor that's a little bit darker than some American stuff. Definitely not as dark as, say, like a Scottish sense of humor or something. But my sense of humor is right in there kind of with Canada, like Canadian people's. It tends to be a little bit dark, and kind of everything can be mocked in a way, and we cover a lot of our pain with that kind of thing.
Self-depreciating humor and...
Yeah. Yeah, that's about it. It's not particularly Canadian. Maybe I could have made it more so, but it's kind of blandly kind of everything. It could kind of be anywhere. Definitely the time that I grew up in the media I looked at was sort of, is a huge influence in terms of the characters being more a little softer in personality, but also a little harsh at the same time. Yeah. Kind of making fun of oneself and like doing a story, but making fun of that story at the same time, kind of a, Mad Magazine sort of thing or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting because there is a big difference. I mean, there's cultural caricatures of Canadian people are that, they're polite and they're self-depreciating in this. And the culture caricature of Americans is that they're very bold and brash and want to talk themselves up. And that's a cultural caricature. For Australians, I suppose they're laconic and laid back and, I don't know, some kind of dickish caricature of Australians.
Like super outdoorsy.
Yeah.
And earthy.
Yeah.
Everything, yeah.
Safari people over here. For us.
Safari people. Yeah, that is a true cultural characterization because when I was a little tiny tyke and I grew up and all the kind of like iconic Australian people on TV would be wearing like kind of military fatigues, you know, like an olive drab or something like that, and like little epaulets. And what I mean is like people, iconic kind of people who were the most Australian people on TV, who, you know, not say newsreaders and stuff like that, were kind of like nature people, you know, talking about how, oh, this is the great outback, look at this, we're going into the outback. But they would always be dressed in those kind of like safari kind of, you know, military kind of clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I thought, like, what being Australian meant is to dress in, you know, some kind of shirt with epaulets on it, you know, olive drab, and go into the bush. And that was what we
like, that's what
ourselves.
we are.
Yeah. And that is what the rest of the world thought of us as well, which is weird. Which I found, you know, looking at old Monty Python sketches and stuff like that, that's what Australians were to everyone. And I thought, wow.
Right. Weirdly enough, I just remembered this. One of the first cartoonists I ever was aware of or saw was an Australian guy.
Oh, really?
Do you have any idea who that might be, Oz?
No.
A guy named Ben Wicks.
Okay. Was he wearing a shirt with
You
epaulets?
don't remember that? No, not at all. But that has no connection to what you're saying. I'm sorry, but he was a cartoonist on TV. He had there were little TV spots of this guy on Canadian TV.
Okay.
Ben Wicks. He was he was a cartoonist, and then he did these ads for, I think it was Big Brothers or something like that. You don't know who Ben Wicks is? Oh, it's weird because I'm pretty sure he was Australian.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, you're not a real Aussie.
He was born in
Aussie.
1926. Jeez, so he was around for a long time.
Yeah, I'm pretty old. That's when I saw him.
He might have left our shores quite early, like Rolf Harris. And
It's possible. Maybe he was in the States. Broadcasting from there. Now that you mention it.
actually, it says he was a British-born Canadian cartoonist.
Oh, he's Canadian. Oh, he's British Canadian. Oh my God, I'm a moron. Never mind. Okay, he's English. He sounded Australian to me.
Well,
Come on, Ben Wicks. You didn't sound English.
Yes, I'm sure there's
They
like
all sound the same to us, spoons.
an idea of what
Exactly. You guys all sound the same.
yeah, when I was in America, they
What
were
was
saying...
that, Sanj?
I was
Daddy
in-
was saying something.
Well, Tom-
Yeah,
I was saying like I think that just because we make that assumption, it implies that you already had an idea of what an Australian would sound like or be like. And
I
you're,
must have. Yeah.
there you go.
Apparently not a correct one.
A completely wrong one. Yeah, exactly.
like a more British version of a Canadian. I like it. Well, yeah, when I was in America for the first time, they all thought I was British. So there's that. Yeah. It's strange.
I was going to ask you real quick, Oz, that one guy that I sent you earlier that does those reviews. I said he's Australian, but I listened to him again. He's not Australian, is he?
He's British, I think. I'm pretty
He's
sure.
Korean.
God damn it!
Korean,
See, man?
Yeah.
Korean with a British accent.
Yeah.
When I went to study in the UK, everyone thought I was either Spanish or French. Nobody guessed Greek. Nobody.
Well, nobody hears Greek. When I first heard a Greek person, I thought they were Italian. So,
Huh.
Yeah, well, that's closer.
Yeah.
That's closer. But I can understand.
yeah, it's strange. Yeah.
A lot of your words sound very Spanishy.
Yeah, and when I went like a few weeks ago, when I went for that seminar in Oxford, they still thought I was Spanish. even though I had this name tag saying that I was from Greece, they still assumed I was Spanish for something.
Oh my God. Those Oxford people are morons.
Yeah, and they were all scientists. Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe that's just English speakers. We can't tell where anyone's from.
Yeah.
We're so bad at that. It could be Romanian, we wouldn't know.
You wouldn't if anyway, let's go on. I'm not going to get off Off tangent. Ha!
Off tangent.
Tangent. Yeah, so our cultural background does influence our stuff in strange ways, and we can't always, recognize how that's going to be. Yeah, so as I said, for my work, I'm aware of it, and I'm aware that I'm putting my stuff towards a mainly American audience, because that's what the largest amount of English speakers in the world are American. More than Britain, more than even all the other English speakers together in the world, except unless you include India, then Indians outweigh us all, are American. Most English speakers are American, excluding India.
I thought it was unique.
So like that includes South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Britain. All of us are together. The Americans are greater than us. Though I don't know about India, as I say. So yeah, it's incredible. So that's when I designed PKTA. I knew that was going to be the main audience, no matter what. So I was thinking about that, and I didn't want to have things that would like offend Americans or would be not understandable to Americans. I wanted to have that in the forefront of my mind. I was always thinking about that fact, that and there wouldn't be any Australian in jokes sort of thing. It would have to be more universal. And also because American culture is so dominant, most people who aren't American speakers also have American English as their first kind of, exposure to something that's English. Their first exposure to English-speaking culture is through American culture. So it helps to have that as the medium through which you create your stuff. You should sort of have that very much in the forefront of your mind, because if you go to something that's more British or more Australian or more South African, that's fantastic, but it's going to be a little bit harder to understand. So an
argument could be made for that's okay, though, especially as we kind of become more connected, we see more and more of each other, and we're, the general kind of we I'm talking about. Yeah. That you could put more of your own culture in there, kind of purposely, because people are more and more capable, I think, and it's kind of
you can. But you just have to realize
people want to see. I think people want to see, like
I think so too.
They do.
Different cultures.
You just have to realize that other people aren't going to view it the same way you do. What you think means a certain thing isn't going to mean the same thing to the rest of the world. So you have to be careful about that. So if I say, if I've got people hopping on trains or whatever, if I use the word carriage, train carriage, to an American, that sounds bizarre. It's not a normal thing. They don't train carriage.
Be like, you're going to a carriage? What are you, a baby?
Yeah.
But still, though, that's not wholly damning. Don't scour your stuff to the point where you have to have it so forefront in your mind all the time, which I know you don't, Oz, but I'm just saying in general, and that's kind of a duh point anyway. But for instance, think about one word, the difference between the way we use fag and you use fag, right? So, or the British use, I don't know, but there it's either a cigarette or a bundle of wood, and here it's derogatory. Yeah. But more and more I've been seeing people you watch some YouTube videos, and some guy that's British, he says fag, and he has to excuse himself. He's like, that's not what I mean, and I see that more and more, and that's good that in that instance that kind of back and forth is made, because it tells us that there are these different meanings and there are these approaches to the word, so
yeah.
It can inform.
Sorry, go ahead, please.
No, I just said it can inform. Go on, Tans.
No, I cut in what Peter was saying, because I thought she was done. So.
All right.
I can't remember what I was going to say. I don't know. Probably wasn't very important.
Anyway, I was just going to say that you could have a character keep the lingo and not draw special attention to it, but just the fact that saying, okay, that he's going to say to go to the carriage, and then that carriage turns out to be a bus or whatever, people will make the connection. I mean, they will know. And if you constrain it to a couple of characters or something, then you can just teach people about your lingo, your the specifics of your culture through that, without alienating them. So
I mean, if it's actually going to screw up the ending of a story or an important story point in some way, I can't think of an example, but that would be a lot more serious, obviously, than having to have people put carriage together or lorry together.
Lorry,
Lorry.
Lorry
pops in the mind.
It can point out a character as being very different and very, in the way they talk. Maybe it could put too much emphasis on the fact that they are different, and that you don't want that. So for some things, especially if you wanted to point out that this character is actually American or this character is actually British, and they speak in a specific way, then fine, use all the individualistic jargon or lingo or whatever it is. I can't remember the word for it, but the mannerisms or whatever. Sure, but if this is more of a universal character, then pointing out the difference can be too confusing. Go on, Pitt.
I can see your point, is what I was going to say, because I've been thinking about that too, and so I think it's how much of the author can you really scrub from the work? I mean, you could never completely scrub the author from the work, right? I mean, the way the author speaks is going to come through somehow. So it's I guess it's just a matter of feel it out, I mean, don't be so preoccupied with getting it right, that you lose sight of the writing, or that the writing loses its impact, or, like Tanya was saying, that the character becomes cardboard feeling or like a caricature when it shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, sometimes it does help to try to be a little accurate. Like if you do have characters and they all just talk like people who are blatantly very British when they're not from there, sometimes that can be distracting. It might not be damning for the story, but you're right, it can be distracting.
Yeah. You've got to give them the
and
correct
another
voice.
thing we were saying is, sorry.
No.
Go ahead.
No, you.
No, I was just thinking, I have started extremely slowly to translate Without Moonlight into Greek, because I have this recurring request from people here to translate it into Greek as well.
Yeah.
So, and having started doing that, I realize because I write Without Moonlight in English from the get-go. I never write in Greek and then translate. So now that I'm translating from English into Greek, all these expressions that were never in the English script, but expressing the same concept, just appear in the Greek version that I hadn't even considered while I was writing in English, if you know what I mean. Little mannerisms and terms of phrase that are only Greek specific. You can't really translate these things. Okay. And it's just because of the context and the tone that I have expressed in a completely different way in the English bubbles. Okay. Now when I am translating into Greek, I have to rethink how to express it, because it would sound awkward in Greek. And I have to think different expressions and things to tailor the dialogue again.
Yeah.
To fit all the panels, but in Greek. So that for me was surprising. I thought it would be easy, and it's not. So, yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a very, very right on the money kind of point. You have to really tailor stuff to the audience that it's going to be broadcast to. Yeah, culturally, it's
just language-wise,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is about Greeks, and still it needs to be repackaged in a sense, the way they talk.
I was thinking of the other point that Hippie made. She was thinking the Canadians there are very cooperative in the way they behave, and that sort of influences the way she thinks and the way she does her comic. I was thinking, I wonder if those kind of cultural influences are evident in the way I write Pinky TA, the way the Australians act. And I think it does, because Australians are very egalitarian and anti-authority, and Pinky definitely has that in her makeup, the whole anti-authority part. So what about you guys? Is there anything like characteristically Canadian or American or Greek? I mean, Chance, you already mentioned like the absolute distrust of authority. What about you, Baines?
In terms of authority?
No, in terms of like a culture where your characters would behave that would be specifically Canadian, not just the repressedness, but how do they behave in groups? How do they behave together? Is there a particular Canadianness about what goes on, or you just can't think of that?
I mean, maybe there's a certain level of cooperativeness that some of the characters have, and then some of the other characters play against that with their kind of more individualistic behavior. Yeah. That could be. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Is that a Canadian thing? Because it would definitely be a subconscious.
Yeah. Well, when we're doing
influence,
when we're doing Bottomless Waitress, and that's sort of set in sort of an American kind of setting, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, how is this going to be? How are you going to do that? How are you going to make it American rather than Canadian or whatever? Are you going to base it on TV that you've seen, or Americans that you've known? How are you going to really get that character across to give it that American feel?
Right. That's the best answer. That's the best answer right there.
American butts. Well, they're not going to talk about their fannies for a start. Because
that was the original title.
We wouldn't say fanny either.
That's right. Exactly.
Actually, no, we would. Now I'm getting mixed up because
fanny,
butts are fannies, and it's the other guys that fannies means.
It would be
Vaginas.
rather explicit in Australia and Britain. But rather cutesy and old-fashioned in America, because it's a very different meaning.
How's your fanny today? You're getting good whipping. It's sore.
Oh, that accent was brilliant.
Thank you. I still don't know if it was British or Australian, though. I don't know what it was.
That sounded very upper class Britain, or at least southern UK kind of accent. Perfect. You could be in a BBC radio program. Fantastic.
On the subject of Baines, did you finish saying what you were going to say?
I petered out, and then you had a way better answer than I did, so you saved it. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, talking about politics and authority and stuff like that. Shut up, phone. And hold on, just a second. Okay, I don't know that number. Talking about American, or not American, but politics in general, and the subject of including things personal, like religious beliefs and stuff like that. I guess that the things that I write and that it's so not there. Like the things that I write are very apolitical and very there's like in Putrid Meat, you know, like there's a king, but he's just like, it's just a stand-in there. Like he's just a caricature more than anything. He's not part of any system that I really go into, you know, and that's not to say that that's strictly an American thing, because there are some great American comics out there that, you know, do deal with politics and stuff. But when I think about like American, especially back when I started Putrid Meat, I mean, I've really of interest in politics, and you don't. I mean, aside from the things that have happened in recent American history, I'm sure I don't have to elaborate on, which did start getting a lot of Americans' attention on what's going on, maybe even still on a very superficial level, I think. You never, you know, you don't meet somebody and sit down and really go into politics in public, you know, or, I mean, you can, but it's very uncomfortable sometimes. And so I think that's why I've never really included politics in anything. I mean, there's not really a place for it in Putrid Meat anyway, but it's just like, it never was even a thought in my head to include something like that, because I just don't, I don't have a specific comment on it.
That's a really good point. Like, I wouldn't give and I sort of, same as you, like, that's how I started, and it was just sort of assume that was the right way to do it, to not give my characters really specific religious convictions or political convictions, or to kind of keep that. I mean, they all have a worldview, I think, and a point of view, but to kind of keep that kind of stuff open, to keep them relatable, you know, to have, like, say if if the character was more of had more Republican beliefs or something, that a Democratic type, I'll use the American stuff because that's the easiest.
There you are.
That a reader from the left wing reading that would not relate, and vice versa. Like, if they seemed like they had these Democratic convictions, then a more right wing reader would just be like, would have just make certain assumptions and not be able to relate to them. Or, you know, like an atheist reads it and they're religious and they're like, I don't, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't do it for that reason, but I just thought I like them to be relatable.
Yeah, you want them to be open. You want to, and I think you also want to be able to use them in ways like, you know, to keep them malleable, flexible for your purposes too. Maybe,
totally, yeah, definitely. I would like to make one of them religious for one story, and then just eliminate it completely.
that reminds me.
Make someone like a hardcore atheist for just one story, and then they don't care either way for the rest of the series.
That reminds me of say, Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They've got one character who is just bizarrely, incredibly religious, incredibly Catholic, and you wouldn't think it, but they just give him this incredibly naive, extreme Catholic point of view.
Which character? One of the main characters?
Yeah.
Charlie?
No, not Charlie. The other one, the gay one.
Mac?
Mac, yeah. Mac is just bizarrely extreme Catholic. You know, and he'll go on and say,
okay,
look,
I didn't even know
gays
that.
are sinners and they're all going to hell. And then he'll say things like, abortion is, you know, he'll have all these extreme beliefs, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
to see that. That would be great. And that's one thing, I mean, that normally Australians do not have strong religious convictions. I mean, maybe people are religious, but you don't talk about it to other people. You don't say, you'd never say, you know, praise the Lord or anything like that. You just never do that. Normal Australians don't. Weird Australians do, but then weird Australians do all sorts of weird things, so I don't include them in it. But you don't.
That's very interesting, because now that you guys are talking about this, I was thinking like Greece has an official religion as a state. Okay, we don't actually have a full separation of state and church. There is a big separation, but not full. So, and we do have like human rights and the tolerance and the freedom of religion and everything. But the official religion in Greece is Orthodox, Greek Orthodox. Christianity. And nobody ever seemed to feel like super religious ever. Like, although if anyone that has come to Greece, you see churches everywhere and everything. Like, nobody is this convent level piety thing. And people are extremely fast and loose with religion. Like, everyone has their own level of religiosity, and nobody feels like it's like a taboo to ask anyone about their own religious beliefs and practice, and it's considered taboo. We don't do it. It's rude.
Yeah.
So, but still, in the language, we have certain terms of phrases, like what you said about praise the Lord and everything, that even Greek atheists use, although they are atheists.
Right.
Because it's so ingrained in the culture that it really just is it's a vessel to convey what you are feeling at the time. Like, for example, it's oh my God, this oh my Lord sort of expression.
Right.
Which
Also
every
that
Greek
kind of
would
thing.
say, even if they believe or not. It means like this is absurd. You're absolutely absurd and stupid, basically. Or
stupid.
like
I've seen it actually. My old I was telling you about this, Tanya. I figure I'll tell him too. My modern Greek teacher back at UIC. She's like a 60-year-old lady. Doesn't seem 60, but very nice older Greek woman, and very patient in her lessons or something. But when something would, if she was calling bullshit on something, or if there's something she wouldn't believe, she'd go, "Oh, Jesus Christ!"
that's also very good. Like, if you hear that. In Greek, it's my Jesus, like a direct translation, which is Christe μου, what are you doing? Which is again something that everyone will say. Even we have, like, there are three main categories that have existed in Greece for a long time for ethnic Greeks, okay, which is Muslim Greeks and of course the 99% Greek Orthodox Greeks and atheist Greeks, and they will all say the same thing. Everyone. There's no way to tell the religion of a Greek person because we all speak with these terms of phrases. And that also goes for the political affiliation. People, you don't ask, or you didn't use at least to ask, what political party someone followed, or it was again considered taboo. And that had a very specific historical reason for it, because we had all these totalitarian
regime
things happening. Yes, and people of a certain political affiliation getting exiled every 20 years or something. So people never reveal, or didn't used to reveal at least, what their political affiliation was for that reason.
Yeah.
And that's why when they went to the kiosk, for example, to buy newspapers, they never bought a single newspaper, because that would reveal what their political affiliation was.
Wow.
So they would buy the whole range, all of them. So this is a very, very cultural.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Like not asking certain.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we as Australians view one of our cultural views of America is that Americans are all very religious and always would say things like, "Oh, praise the Lord," and things like this, and be
that's the entire all of America. It's
that's a cultural caricature that Americans are very religious and.
For us, it's like this. You mentioned it's African Americans with the gospel, like they are the ones that do this huge visual parties in the church, which for us is like,
Yeah.
wow, okay, he danced in the church, wow.
Like theater.
We like
Yeah, like they're dancing and like the music is awesome. It's very
Yeah.
sort of like a powerful
about
image.
it,
Yeah.
some people
Yeah.
saying like, why don't we do that? And in our churches.
It's not. Do you know?
But
Oh, go
yeah,
on.
go ahead.
I was just going to
No,
say.
no.
There's this fantastic old joke about this American visiting a British church, and the priest is reading out his sermon, very soberly saying, and then the Israelites spake unto us, and blah blah blah. And from the back of the church, there's this voice shouts out, "Hallelujah!" And everyone sort of stops for a minute and is quiet, and then goes on and he starts saying, and the Israelites, blah, 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 blah. And then a few moments later, hallelujah, praise the Lord. And then everyone sort of just looks around, what the hell's that coming from? What's going on? And then they start, talking again, doing the sermon. And a third time the guy goes, praise the Lord, hallelujah. And the rector walks up to him and says, sir, what's going on here? And he said, I found religion. And the rector says, well, you certainly didn't find it here. Well, that's the punchline. That's because... I'm sorry, it's a British joke. It's a British joke, yeah.
I don't think I get it.
Well, the idea is...
I get it.
Yeah, I get it. It's like he found it in America.
Yeah, their idea of Christianity
is
is very, very different from...
Right.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry.
It's a good way of characterizing the differences, the cultural differences between this more sober British Anglicanism and this more ebullient American, well, maybe Baptist, maybe Southern Baptist kind of way of
yeah, it really did. Like I remember when I used to be a kid, we had to go to church, and I went to like Bible school and all that stuff, and like it was, I don't know, I mean there was singing and stuff, but like it was at an appropriate time, like, and I don't mean appropriate like I mean like it was like, it was like a very ritualized thing, like, you wouldn't want to sing too loud, or else, like, because your singing voice sucks, and that matters. And you don't want like old Mrs. like Beasley sitting next to you, like casting judgment or nothing. And then, like, there wasn't. I mean, there was like not chants, but like proclamations. But they were, when the Reverend would dictate and stuff. And
yeah, you go amen or something.
And then when it was done, and you went home and you forgot it. So that was it.
Gotten over with. Yeah. But that is a big thing. Also, when I went over to America, very, very patriotic place that I was San Diego, because of course there's massive Camp Pendleton or something like that there, huge Marine base. So that
something I don't know.
Huge. I mean, they had the biggest flags I've ever seen out the front of used car lots. American flags everywhere. Everyone had American flags. I can't remember what country I am. Oh, there we are. That's it. That's what the country is. I've never seen that level of patriotism. And then I went down to, say, New Orleans, and they have the American flag and the New Orleans flag, or Louisiana flag, whatever it is, with the fleur-de-lis and purple or whatever it is. And those are the two things they have. And that's other countries, they don't do that so much. So that's a typically American thing. I don't know, in Canada...
Isn't it funny, too?
I'll go on, Pip. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, funny, too. Think of the context that was in, too. You'll see it outside... public buildings, which makes sense, like schools and post offices and stuff. And then, like you said, you'll see it then like all over like used car lots. Like, why? Like,
and there was a mega church with even bigger flag, and I thought, what, a mega church? It's just like all the cliches in one.
Oh, yeah. God and country. Well, that harkens back to like God and country, that type of thing. So that's...
I'm sure it's not like that
It is
everywhere.
intermingled.
I'm sure it's that
but...
is not a typical thing. I'm not saying all America is like, because it's a vast.
Oh no,
place.
but I would agree though that it is certainly more prevalent probably than a lot of other places. So you were going to say something about Canada. Talk about Canada.
Well, I was just going to say, is that a thing about Canada? Do you have like the maple leaf flag everywhere on all the buildings and
on? Like Pitt said, like in public. Sort of public buildings, government buildings, you'll see it on car lots and stuff. I've never really seen that.
People
it's not quite the
paint
same
the
thing.
maple leaf on the side of their truck or
No, it's a different.
wear a maple leaf
That would
jacket.
be awesome. Dude, that would be awesome. Oh my God.
That would be.
I know.
Canadian nationalism.
Yeah. We know all about that.
Yeah, all about that.
I haven't seen much of Greece at all, but
What, flags?
yeah, when I was in Athens, both times there were Greek flags, but not extreme. I've noticed that Greeks abroad are quite proud of their flags, though. So that is something that's but not in Greece itself.
It depends on we do have. You will see Greek flags in all the administrative buildings and public state buildings and so. Also hotels, you will see them. For some reason, there are some supermarkets have the Greek flag for whatever reason. And anything that carries a flag that is not that is, some sort of commercial flag or whatever, but that is not actually the national one, will have the Greek flag next to it. All.
Right.
And now with the crisis and all the political upheaval and everything, you will see a lot of houses do carry at all times the Greek flag, which is it will take a long time to explain, and I will not here. But it's a political statement that is like an inside thing. Like only Greeks understand why there is a flag in that particular house and not in the next and things like that. So right now it is becoming a political statement here, or it has become, depending on what cycles you move, social circles in Greece. Mm-hmm. So
okay. Well, for Australia, we never used to have that. You'd only have the Australian flag on. You'd wave it about on like national holidays or something, like Anzac Day or something, which is celebrating the fallen war heroes. But so you'd never used to do it, but it's becoming more prevalent slowly. There's more people who have the flag outside of their houses. Still not very many, but it's more than there used to be. But it's more likely to be racist people or people who are nationalistic to, an extreme level who would do it. And the other flag they have appropriated is called the Southern Cross, which was one of our first original flags. It's a blue flag with a white cross and white stars. And there was some kind of miners' revolution in the 19th century, and since it became a workers' flag for unions. But now it has morphed into like the British George's Cross. So that was the first, flag of England rather than the Wales or Scotland or Northern Ireland. But that has become appropriated by this racist kind of subclass, and they will paint. Yeah. They also use it like in when there's to celebrate the England team for when they're overseas or whatever, and they'll paint their face with the George Cross, and won't be a racist thing, but it has become adopted by racists the same way the Southern Cross unfortunately has been in Australia. So that's interesting. So yeah.
And even to a degree here, the American flag as well. Like it's not as much. But you were just making me think about, mostly because of Trump's campaign and how he had integrated the American flag into his logo. Now, I mean, it's not like people don't like a lot of, like, we even still have an American flag hanging outside of our house and stuff. But a lot of the times, I'd be uncomfortable wearing an American flag on my shirt, even if it wasn't associated with any kind of political logo or statement, because I would imagine that people would assume that I was on one spectrum rather than the other.
Ah, yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
But and that is a very specific cultural thing about America, that the flag traditionally was not seen as an ultra patriotic thing. That's just part of the culture, and to wear the flag is just to be American. And you have it fantastically portrayed, say, in Easy Ride, when they have it's on a motorbike or whatever, his motorbike helmet, and it's just almost a part of a clothing pattern. It's that integrated. You don't really see it as being political in that, and that's been used like so much. Then it just became part of the scenery. But yeah, taking it back to politics again is interesting. Go on,
and now that you mention it, what Deidre said about wearing clothes with a flag, and now I'm talking about the Greek flag, that would in many occasions signify that person is like far right and probably neo-Nazi or whatever.
Wow.
So, and there's a reason for that, because it has never been within our culture to wear, quote unquote, the flag, because it's considered disrespectful. Like you don't wear it because it is used in a way that basically crumples it, can stain it, can generally, put it through wear and tear that you shouldn't put your symbol through. And that's why people don't really like having, for example, beach towels with the pattern of the flag in it for that reason, because you don't, wipe yourself with a flag. So,
so to speak.
Which is, I think it's very cultural, because, for example, we have a lot of British people that, and there's this whole merchandise series with the British flag slapped on absolutely everything. Yeah. So, and clearly they don't feel that way. So I think it's very cultural specific.
It is.
So the only people that actually will wear the Greek flag on their shirt, or are people that unfortunately ascribe to things that are not very Hellenic, let's say. So that would be a sin.
Interesting.
But not if you have it like outside your house, or treat it as a flag. It's a flag. No, don't use it in any other way.
Well, that is interesting. I know. So people from other countries will wear an American flag, and that won't be showing like they want to be American. That will be like showing an affinity for, say, kind of rock and roll culture, and those kind of American ideals of that whole freedom thing, and that kind of stuff. They want to exemplify that idea of like a free commercial kind of world culture kind of person. That's what the American flag means. And if you wear a British flag, that means you're kind of thinking about 1970s punk movement. That's the kind of thing you want to exemplify. So
yeah,
I was going to say, I would see a Union Jack a lot, like in people's basement windows or something like that. Yeah. I guess that's when I was a kid. I guess that's probably where the teenagers' rooms were, or something like that. We'd see that all the time, the basement window, like I guess as a punk thing or whatever.
Exactly. That is really an interesting take on it. We don't often think about that stuff.
It's weird because we Greeks here will wear both the American and the British flag, no problem, and it will not be considered like it's disrespectful or anything, and which is weird. And we also would wear the communist flag, like the old USSR, which I guess is anathema in other countries. Here it's worn okay, especially by hipsters.
Because it's considered ironic, isn't it? It's considered sort of just a very anachronistic symbol now.
No. Over here it's not considered that. It's considered like I'm provocative in a sense, and I'm going against the grain. But it's hipster. Like nobody takes you seriously if you wear the sickle and the hammer in that manner. So it's usually reserved for like 17-year-olds. I think they are making a political statement by slapping on
borrowed symbols.
The communist flag. Yeah, and then they have also Che Guevara shirts and everything. But they take them seriously. Like, okay, this is my stance against the system.
I love it. Well, we run a bit over time here because this was such an interesting talk, and I wanted just to continue into this specific area, which was even more fascinating than what we started with. So thank you guys for being part of this Crackcast number 306.
Thank you.
I love
theme
that
song.
sound.
Thank you. That's my ringer.
Is that our exiting outro
Exit music. Yeah, outro music.
That's perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys for being part of the Quackcast.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.